Another Texas town for our opening clip, that is Beeville, Texas, about halfway between San Antonio and Corpus Christi. And thanks once again to Greg Payne for that great footage. Let's take a look at the surface map. We have yet another weather system working through the central U.S. That's the big one right there. This is a lot of so-called overrunning isentropic lift over this relatively cool air. When you have that southerly flow developing over a frontal boundary, you've got that cool air to the north, the warm air to the south, you tend to get lift. And with cool conditions aloft and warm conditions in the layers right above the frontal boundary, that's a great recipe for instability and showers and storms. And in Texas, we have a separate system right here. That is a surface low just northwest of Tulsa with a dry line all the way down to Bowie, Texas and San Angelo. There's those westerly winds behind that, the downslope helping to bring the temperatures up to 100, close to 100 at Wichita Falls. Temperatures cooler to the east of that dry line. You would think that in that warm tropical air it would be very toasty, but the air has a very high specific heat. It doesn't really take on much heat very efficiently, so temperatures only rise into the 80s. Also a lot of cloud cover, low cloud, stratocumulus, altocumulus helping to keep the temperatures just a little bit cooler. On the East Coast, not very much going on. High pressure, 1029 millibar high. And with that, we're getting that northeasterly flow down in Florida, the Carolinas, and some very low dew points down in the 20s and 30s with clear skies. So that gives us a very nice afternoon. Some thunderstorms just south of Florida along this old frontal boundary. And when we go into Mexico, there's some pretty good storms out there near Monterrey. I'll see if we can check those out on the satellite imagery. And on the west coast, a front coming into Northern California, strong cold air advection, showers offshore, and with the onshore component here in Oregon, Washington, and Northern California, getting some of that orographic lift, moisture and proximity to this warm sector right here, helping to destabilize the atmosphere and give us some low-level lift, similar to what we have out east. In Alaska, very gradually warming up, starting to see a lot of 40s. Fairbanks around 40 this hour. A lot of the colder air still up on the North Slope, and when we go into the high Arctic of Canada, we're getting into those sub-zeros once again, still producing that Arctic air, temperatures down to, looks like as cold as minus 14 at Isaacson. And then out in the Atlantic, stormy once again in Labrador. A lot of snow in that region. And another frontal system exiting Newfoundland, the cold air advection coming in behind that, producing some showery weather. But you can see that post-frontal air is 30s and 40s instead of zeros and teens. So we are getting that strong warm-up. Okay, let's check out some of these storms here in Oklahoma. They're going up at this hour. However, the satellite imagery indicates Turkey Towers. See that right there, just south of Tulsa. In Anvil developed. Almost got a thunderstorm out of that, but nothing happened. So we're looking for new development further back west towards the dry line. Looks like that cumulus field is actually dissipating, as it often does during the early evening. So the chances of storms are going down. A little bit more aggressive development near Fort Worth. Same cumulus field going up during the afternoon. A shower north of Mineral Wells produces an anvil, and then it's gone. This cumulus field looks a little bit more vigorous, but it also looks to be in decline. And our more diligent viewers will probably notice that smoke. I think that's smoke maybe coming from around Raton or Trinidad, Colorado. And in Mexico, as we promised, thunderstorms going up there, and you can see those anvils are pretty sheared, so there is the potential for severe weather. This cluster here on the Serrania del Burro, that's a popular area for storms heading into Del Rio and Eagle Pass this time of year. That storm tried to develop, it did not hold together, so probably a strong cap, or the inflow is not that great. In fact, yeah, winds are out of 150 out there near Del Rio, and we really need to see that backed to feed those types of clusters. Then down to the south, more of those string bean anvils. Looks like the only one that has actually become sustained is down there close to Monterey. So probably some showers in that area. And you can see the transverse bands, the gravity waves, the mountain waves. That's indicating very strong flow, the subtropical jet passing right over that area. Taking a quick look at the surface chart does show a localized area of backed winds that could potentially feed the Serrania del Burro storms, but I did notice there was an absence of low cloud. It looks like there's been a lot of erosion of that moisture. You can see what I'm talking about there. See how that moisture just kind of dissipates. We lose the cumulus fields. So let's take a look at the high resolution rapid refresh. It's always helpful to pull up a sounding to see what you're dealing with. And we put one just west of Del Rio right there. Strong cap. There is a lot of cape. The moisture could be a little bit better. Typically in Del Rio this time of year, we start seeing 70s, and that's quite a bit lower than the typical average in this kind of back southeasterly flow. So if you want to read more about that weather regime, put in Serrania del Burro supercell into a search engine, and you'll get a few hits, Wikipedia. But more importantly, there's some papers here. Supercells of the Serrania del Burro. I think that one was written by Roger Edwards. No, he has written about it, but this paper here was by Weiss and Ziegler. It's got a good map there, and it'll give you some good background on these storms. Yeah, there's the one by Roger Edwards. I think that was one of the first ones. As there were a couple of episodes back in the mid-2000s that produced a lot of damage. There was the tornado in Eagle Pass back in 2007. And I think that prompted a lot of these studies, and that's Roger Edwards' paper. And Roger Edwards, of course, is a forecaster at SPC. So definitely check those out. And checking in on Big Rig Steve and his great views of the sky. This was Western Ohio a couple of hours ago. He's at a loading dock right now, so he can't film in there. But the sky showing a lot of mid-cloud overcast. This is a mix of altostratus and altocumulus, maybe at about 15,000 feet, starting to fill in as that weather system approaches from Illinois and Indiana. So the weather is going to go downhill there. So referring back to that surface map, he's located right there. You can see all the weather just to the west and the warm advection regime. And a quick sounding will always help us to learn a little bit more. We need to go back to the time when he took the video. Set that on his area of southwestern Ohio, and that's the sounding at this time. This is pretty educational. Shows you the considerable humidity. Starts at about 14,000 feet. So that's definitely all mid and very low high cloud. Down below, dry air. Of course, that'll change as that moisture return comes in from the south with those south winds. So that's how it looks. So we do have this slight risk in eastern Oklahoma. No watches in effect, not even a mesoscale discussion, and no storm reports. So what's in store for the remainder of the evening? Let's check back in on this. Let me get rid of some of those counties. Not really seeing much going on. No new development. So at this point, a good thing to do is to look at the models and see what they're indicating. because if they develop nothing either, then that's most likely what's going to happen. If they do develop stuff, then maybe you need to go take a closer look. So we do see some nocturnal activity up there near Springfield, Joplin, in southwestern Missouri after dark. So that's going to be supported by the low-level jet, maybe crossing over that warm front, and those storms may be a little bit elevated. Nothing overnight. Okay, so most of the activity limited to the Ozarks. SPC's Day 2 outlook focusing on Kansas. A little bit of tornado potential centered around Pratt. And the Day 3 outlook, this is indicating probably a large dry line setup. No area particularly favored at this time. So let's dig in the charts and start looking for what's going to happen for the remainder of the week. Now, of course, I do like to go into the upper air moisture, 925 millibar dew point, because that's tracking the fuel that is going to feed anything that develops. All right, so the remainder of today, you can see that low-level jets feeding the stuff in southwestern Missouri this evening. It's very veered. And even at 925, you can see that frontal boundary settling in over southwestern Oklahoma. If the cap was a little bit weaker, I would suspect maybe potential for nocturnal stuff in the Red River Valley. The high-resolution rapid refresh did not bear that out. The low-level jet remains established into tomorrow, probably carries those boundaries north into Kansas, and that's going to be your severe potential. Maybe some of the best targets right there around that triple point. And a lot of upslope flow into northwestern Kansas that can produce severe weather, especially with those 60s dew points coming all the way up into Wyoming. So that does bear watching. So around max heating for Friday, situation is going to look like that. You can see the moisture is not very impressive along that dry line. So I think we're probably getting some recirculated air coming in from Florida and working back into Texas. This is not a deep return of tropical air. Most of that's coming up into the Rio Grande. So that's going to be a limiting factor. And I would expect probably the best potential on Friday to be up there in South Dakota. So that's near that northern periphery of that slight risk. But I think the best potential probably will be there. Then going into the remainder of the weekend, the setup for Saturday, dry slot working into Nebraska and South Dakota. The dry line still well defined from west of Omaha down to about Midland, Texas, but the flow pretty veered, and you can see we're not really pulling in 60s dew points at 925. A little bit better moisture makes it up along the dry line for Sunday, but it looks like a cold front settles in. Very likely some severe weather potential in Texas for Sunday. That's where the low-level moisture impinges on that front. Then for Monday, the setup looking like this. Stationary front through Texas, Interstate 10. Some good upslope, very likely around Del Rio, maybe getting those Serrania del Burro storms going for early next week. And then a period of quiet weather. We flush out the moisture, offshore flow pushing that out for the middle of the week, and then return moisture for Wednesday and Thursday. It looks, once again, very paltry due to the wide extent of that high, bringing a lot of dry air southward. But eventually we're back in business for late in the week, and it's almost May, and that's when things really get busy. Well, it's already 6:53 p.m. We're out of time. Got to get this wrapped up and uploaded, but one last look at the situation. Nothing going on. one little cell, maybe west of Mineral Wells, right there. That's of some concern. It's kind of holding on. Of course, it may go the same route as the others, but that's what I would watch right now. A quick look at the Dias radar, which I used to help manage in another time and era. The higher tilt's not really showing anything, so not really picking up that little splotch of whatever that was. But a boundary definitely surging northwest as the moisture advection gets established. I want to thank our flurry of new supporters: Jason Walls, David Fick, Brian Neben, Jesse Newsom, Brett Rose, and Craig Howe. Thank you very much for your support and answering the call from Friday for additional support. That's definitely a morale boost, and it'll keep me going with this program a while longer. I hate to say it, but I do like to see that growth. Of course, I should be happy with what I have, but my time is limited, and if I'm not doing this, I need to be working on the software and books, and I do have to kind of treat it as a business in that regard. But I appreciate the support nevertheless, and I'm very happy that many of you are enjoying the program. So that's all for this edition. We'll be back on Friday, and we'll take a look at that stuff on the dry line. And I'm really going to try to push this back to an earlier time, around midday, pre-convection. That way you all don't have to wait so long, and we get to cover more interesting stuff. So enjoy the footage of Beeville from Greg, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Take care. Bye-bye.